I moved to New York a short time ago. I came to an internship at a company in the center, and man, the subway here is a maze. It was my first day trying to reach an important meeting, and I was completely lost. My cell phone was with the map open, but the lines, the letters, the numbers, nothing made sense. I was sweating, afraid of delaying myself, and the noise of the trains and the crowd only worsened my anxiety. I decided to ask for help because it wasn't going to handle it alone. I saw a normal-looking guy, half in his, with a gray jacket and a cap, stopped near a spine. He seemed to know what he was doing, so I asked if he could tell me the right line for Midtown. The guy was super helpful, said he knew the way and could take me to the right platform. I was relieved, you know? He started guiding me on some stairs that I swear I hadn't seen before. We went down one bid, then another, and the place was getting empty, quieter. The noise of the trains was distant, and the air looked heavier with a half-moldy smell. I asked if we were on the right track, because my app was showing that I should be in another season. He just smiled and said to trust that this was a shortcut. My stomach nodded, but I was so desperate not to be late that I went after. We arrived on a platform that looked abandoned, with dirty tiles and some flashing lights. There was almost no one, just a guy sleeping on a bench and a woman fiddling with her cell phone. I looked at the schedule panel and there was nothing, no train listed. That's when I started to feel a cold in my spine. I started to get really uncomfortable. I looked at the guy and asked again if we were in the right place because seriously, that platform didn't seem normal. He just gave a little crooked smile and said to wait, that the train was already coming. But no train came. The app on my cell phone was shouting that I was 3 stations where I needed to be. I tried to keep calm, but my heart was fired. I looked around, and the woman who was on her cell phone was gone. The guy sleeping on the bench didn't even move, and I started wondering if he was really sleeping. The man in the jacket stared at me without blinking and asked if I was new in the city, with such a calm voice that it gave me goosebumps. I tried to disconcert, said yes, but I needed to leave. He just shook his head, as if he knew something I didn't know. That's when I heard heavy steps behind me. I turned and saw a subway employee, an older guy with an orange vest coming toward us. He looked angry with a flashlight in his hand, pointing to the jacket man. "You again? Get out of here now," he shouted. I froze without understanding anything. The employee came to me and said, in a serious tone, that area was dangerous, that scammers took tourists to steal or whatever. My blood froze. I looked to the side, and the jacket guy just wasn't there anymore. It disappeared, as if it had never existed. The employee asked me if I was fine, and I could barely answer. I just shook my head. He told me to climb the stairs and get the nearest exit because this part of the subway is not safe. My head was 1,000, trying to sue what had just happened. I climbed the stairs running, my heart in my mouth, looking back every 2 seconds to see if anyone was following me. The employee stayed on the platform, shouting something I couldn't understand why the blood was throbbing in my ears. When I reached the main level, the noise of the subway and the crowd returned, as if I had left a nightmare. But I was still trembling, sweating cold, with the feeling that something very wrong had just happened. I checked my cell phone, and the app showed that I was in a station that didn't even appear properly on the map, as if it were a disabled area. I tried to calm down, but my head kept repeating the image of that jacket guy, the way he looked at me, as if he knew exactly what he was doing. I took the first train I saw, without even checking if it was right, just wanted to get out of there. On the train, I tried to organize my thoughts. Was the jacket guy just a scammer, as the employee said? But why did he disappear so fast? And that platform, how did I end up there? I am not believing in strange things, but there was something in that situation that did not seem normal. The moldy smell, the lights flashing, the heavy silence. It seemed that I had entered a place that should not exist. When I arrived at the right season, I was late for the meeting, but I didn't even care. I sat on a bench, trying to breathe properly, and realized that my wallet was intact, my cell phone too. They took nothing, but I felt I had escaped something worse. I looked at the app again, and the station where I was before simply didn't show up, as if I was gone from the system. It made me even more terrified. After recomposing myself, I went to the meeting, but I spent the rest of the day with that horrible feeling stuck to me, as if someone was still watching me. I didn't tell anyone at work because, really, who was going to believe? I was having difficulty accepting that it had happened. When I returned to my apartment at night, I decided to research that season. I searched Google, Reddit, in New York Metro forums, but I didn't find anything to explain. Some people mentioned ghost platforms or old areas of the subway that were abandoned, but it was a little vague, more urban legend than fact. Even so, reading this made my stomach wrap. Had I stumbled in such a place? And the guy in the jacket, who was he? I couldn't get his face out of his head. That smile that didn't seem human. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw the deserted platform, the lights flashing, and heard the echo of my own steps. I ended up staying up until dawn, with my cell phone in hand, rereading the subway map. I tried to trace the way I made, but made no sense. The stairs that went down with the guy didn't beat with any season I found on the map. It was as if I had entered a hole in the system, a place that did not officially exist. What's worse is that there was no way to confirm anything. The subway employee seemed to know something, but I couldn't find him again. And the jacket guy? He simply evaporated. I wondered if he wanted to steal me, hurt me, or, I don't know, something worse. This uncertainty is what is killing me so far. The next day, I tried to go back to the routine, but couldn't stop thinking about that platform. I decided I would never go down random stairs again on the subway, even if it was desperate. I started to notice more the people around me, always with a foot behind, as if anyone could be like the guy in the jacket. At work, a colleague who has lived in New York for years told me that the subway has old areas, some even sealed, that no one uses more. He laughed, saying they are haunted, but I didn't find it funny. I wondered if the subway employee knew something he didn't want to tell. Was this place really used only by scammers? Or was something more wrong? I wanted answers, but at the same time I was afraid of digging deeper. Still, I wrote down everything that remembered. The smell, the lights, the way the guy disappeared. Sometimes in the subway I feel it. I don't see, but I feel. It's like someone is staring at me, even with the crowded wagon. It has already happened to look at the reflection in the train window and think I saw a gray jacket. But when I turn, there is no one. I'm trying to convince myself that it's just my head, that the city stress is making me paranoid. But there are nights that dream of that platform, and in the dream I can't climb the stairs. I get stuck there with the jacket guy looking at me. I wake up sweating with a heart shot. I tried to look for the subway employee once, went back to the station where I thought it all happened, but no one knew who I was talking about. The worst is that I don't know if I want to know the truth. I just know that something on that platform was not right, and I just escaped. Now, weeks later, I still avoid certain subway stations. I can't explain, but I feel that something has changed me since that day. Every time I go down a darker staircase or pass through an empty corridor, my body gets tense, as if I expected to see that jacket guy again. I've tried to talk about it with a friend, but he just laughed, said I probably just fell into a poorly executed blow. But that was not all. I know it wasn't. The way that place seemed out of reality, the silence that made no sense in the midst of New York. That doesn't come out of my head. Sometimes I get the subway app obsessively, as if you were going to find a clue, but nothing. It is as if that moment has been erased from the world, less from my memory. What's worse is that somehow it seems that everything stopped as fast as it started. I didn't see the guy again, I never found that platform again, and the subway was just the subway, confused, crowded, normal. But I don't feel normal. I still have nightmares, and in some of them, I hear his voice saying, "Trust me," while the platform lights blink. I don't know if it was a scammer, a crazy, or, I don't know, something I can't explain. I just know that I will never ask for help from strangers in the subway. To this day, I have no answers and maybe never have. I just wanted to vent here because, man, that was real and still gives me goosebumps just remembering. Has anyone been through something like this?
Hey, if you're loving these creepy tales, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like to keep the chills coming at 333 Horror Stories.
I'm a single mother. I have a 3-year-old boy, and I depend on the subway every day to take him to the daycare and go to work. Today it was a day pulled. It was exhausted, with pain in the feet to stand in the office. I took the subway from the Red Line, around 6 p.m., packed as always. I was carrying Lucas on my lap, the backpack on my back, and trying to balance myself with the wagging wagon. He was quiet, but starting to get restless because of the heat and the crowd. I saw a seat occupied by a guy who seemed to be sleeping, his head against the window. He had an old coat, thin beard, and looked a little wide, you know? I asked him to release the place because I was with a child, but he didn't even move. I was a little angry, but I let it go. After all, the wagon was full and I didn't want to get confusion. Lucas began to cry out of nowhere. A cry that was neither hungry nor sleep, was different, as if he was afraid. I tried to calm him down, swinging on his lap, but he pointed to the sleeping guy and moaned, saying, man. I found it strange because Lucas doesn't usually react to strangers. I stared at the guy, and I swear, I had the feeling that he wasn't sleeping. His head was a little sloping, but his eyes seemed ajar, as if staring at me without moving a muscle. The wagon was noisy, but I felt a cold in my pimple, as if something was wrong. I tried to ignore, convince myself that it was just tiredness, but Lucas's crying didn't stop, and I started to get nervous. When our station arrived, I went down fast, relieved to leave that tightness. But as I crossed the platform, I saw the same face of the seat, standing near a pillar, staring at me. The way he was staring at me, guys, you can't explain. It was as if I wanted to say something, but without opening my mouth. My heart shot, and Lucas squeezed my neck, whimpering again. I was paralyzed on the platform with Lucas clinging to me, and that man there, staring at me. He didn't blink, I swear, and his gaze was so heavy that it seemed that he was holding me in place. I tried to look away, but it was as if he pulled me back. What's worse is that the platform was full of people passing, but no one seemed to notice it. Lucas was shaking in my lap, and I felt a shiver that climbed the back of his neck to my head. I tried to convince myself that it was just coincidence, that perhaps he had come down in the same season, but something inside me shouted that it was not normal. I decided to walk fast for exit, holding Lucas tightly, but when I looked back, the guy was still there, in the same place without taking his eyes off me. That's when I decided to call a security guard, because I was very afraid that he would follow me or do something. I found a security guard near the turnstile and, half breathless, explained what was happening. I spoke of the guy in the wagon, the weird look, how he appeared on the platform. The security guard, a little guy, asked me to describe the man and said he was going to check. He called another colleague on the radio and asked if I could wait a minute. In the meantime, I stared at the sides, afraid to see the guy again, but he was gone. Lucas was calmer, but still clinging to me, as if he felt something was wrong. After a few minutes, the security guard came back with a strange face and called me to the corner. He said they found a man in the wagon with the description I gave, but that he was unconscious, probably overdose. My stomach wrapped it on time. Like this, I had seen him on the platform, looking at me. There was no way to be the same person. I tried to explain, but the security guard only shook my head, as if I had confused things. I was not reaction trying to sue what the security guard said. My head was spinning, and I could only think I couldn't have imagined that. The guy was on the platform, looking at me. I saw him as clear as I see Lucas now. I started to ask for security if they were sure if it couldn't be someone else, but he said the wagon was still stopped at the station because of the incident and that the man was being taken by paramedics. I felt a tightness in my chest, as if the air was heavier. Lucas, who was quiet, suddenly began to cry again. pointing to nothing and saying, "Man, man," again. That gave me such a desperation that I almost cried right there. I asked for security to accompany me to the exit because I didn't want to be any more seconds at that season. While we walked out, the security guard tried to calm me down, saying that sometimes stress makes us see things other than there. But I knew it wasn't that. I felt that look, felt his weight, and Lucas felt something too because he had never been that scared. When I arrived on the street, the fresh air gave me a relief, but I was still shaking. I looked back to make sure no one was following me, and thank God, I saw nothing. I sat on a bench nearby to calm me down before taking the bus home. Lucas finally fell asleep in my lap, but I couldn't stop thinking about what happened. How could this man be on the platform if he was unconscious in the wagon? And why was Lucas so terrified? I never believed about supernatural things, but guys, today I don't know what to think anymore. I'm writing it now with my heart in my mouth, still trying to understand. On the bus home, I couldn't take that look out of my head. It was as if you've been recorded on me, like a picture you don't want to remember, but you can't erase. Lucas was sleeping in my lap, but still I kept looking at him all the time, afraid that he would wake up scared again. I tried to distract myself looking out the window, but every shadow, every person on the street, made me think it was that man. My hand trembled as I held my bag, and I caught myself praying softly, something I hadn't been doing for years. When I got home, I locked the door quickly and checked all the windows, as if there was someone watching me. I sat on the couch with Lucas still on my lap and stared at the emptiness, trying to find some logical explanation. But nothing made sense. I was so nervous that I couldn't eat. I just had a glass of water to try to calm me down. Before putting Lucas on the bed, I changed his clothes and noticed that he was holding a piece of crumpled paper in his hand. My heart stopped for a second. It was a piece of subway ticket, all wrinkled, with a dark spot that looked dirty or whatever. I don't remember him taking anything from the wagon, and I was holding it all the time. I stared at that roll, afraid to touch, as if to burn me. I put Lucas on the bed and threw the paper in the trash, but I still felt a cold in my belly. I tried to convince myself that it was just coincidence, that he could have taken it on the floor or something, but deep down I knew it was not normal. I went to the room and left the light on, because I couldn't even think about being in the dark. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that man's face, with that empty look, as if I wanted to tell me something I didn't want to hear. I tried to sleep, but every little noise in the house made me jump out of bed. The fan ranging, the neighbor dragging a chair, everything seemed amplified. I kept looking at the ceiling with my cell phone in hand, wondering if I should research overdoses on the subway or something, but it was afraid of what I could find. The worst was to remember that man's eyes, as if he knew something I didn't know. Sometimes I would close my eyes and see him again, stopped on the platform, with that empty expression. I tried to think about Lucas, how scared he was, and that made me even angrier because he didn't deserve to go through it. Around 2 in the morning, I got up to get water and past the trash where I threw the paper. I stopped in front of the trash, with my heart beating hard, but I didn't have the courage to open to look. I just came back to the room and locked the door. When it dawned, I was exhausted, but relieved to be a new day. I took Lucas to daycare as always, but avoided the subway and took a bus, even taking longer. On the way, I wondered if I should tell someone like a friend or my mother, but I was afraid to look crazy. The security guard said it was overdose, so why did I see that man on the platform? And the roll in Lucas's hand? Nothing fitted. When I got to work, I tried to focus, but my head was back to the wagon, for Lucas's cry, for the guy's eyes. I decided to write here because I needed to put it out, and maybe someone has gone through something like that. So far, I don't know what happened that day, and I swear I never want to feel that fear again. What's worse is that sometimes when I close my eyes, I still feel him looking at me, as if he was not really gone. I spent all day with a weird feeling, as if someone behind me. At work, I dropped a coffee on the table because I thought I saw a shadow passing through the window. But when I looked, I had nothing. I was thinking about Lucas, how scared he was, and it made me even more restless. When I went to pick him up, he was playing normal, but asked, "Where's the man?" out of nowhere, as if remembering the subway. My heart froze, and I just said I had no man, trying not to give him my fear. On the way home, I avoided looking at people on the street, afraid to see that face again. Now, writing this, I'm with Lucas sleeping in the room and the TV on to make noise, because the silence is making me nervous. I never went to believe in ghosts or things like that, but that day moved me in a way that doesn't explain. What's worse is that, so far, I don't know what really happened. The man was in the wagon, unconscious, but I saw him on the platform, and Lucas felt something too. That roll in his hand doesn't leave my head, but I didn't have the courage to get back from the trash. Sometimes I think about going back to the station to ask if you know more about the guy, but just thinking about getting into the subway again, my stomach rapped. I wrote this here because I needed to tell someone, and I hope someone has an explanation, because I don't have it. It was as if, for a few minutes, something followed me, and then disappeared out of nowhere without a trail. To this day, I don't know if it was my head, if it was tiredness, or if it was something I will never understand. I just know I never want to go through this again.
Hey, if you're loving these creepy tales, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like to keep the chills coming at 333 Horror Stories.
I have been an intern in an office in the capital for just 3 months, and usually leave at normal time along with everyone. But yesterday my boss asked me to finish organizing a huge pile of documents that needed to be ready for a meeting early today. I ended up staying until almost 23h alone in the office, with only the security of the building at the reception. When I finally finished, I got my things, said goodbye to the security guard, and walked to the nearest subway station. I was exhausted. My eyes burned from reading documents and my head throbbed. I just wanted to get home, take a hot shower and sleep. The station was practically empty at that time, with only a few people waiting on the platform. The subway arrived in a few minutes and I entered the second wagon. There were only 5 people scattered around the wagon, which is not uncommon for that time. I sat in one of the half seats, left my bag on my lap, and started moving my cell phone to pass the time. That's when I noticed, by the reflection in the window in front of me, a man of dark suit sitting a few rows behind me. He would not have paid attention to him if it were not for the fact that he seemed to be staring at me. Do you know that feeling of being observed? That's exactly what I felt. A shiver went up my pimple, but I tried to convince myself that it was just paranoia. After all, I was tired and a little nervous to be coming back so late. I discreetly changed my position to look better at the reflection of the window, and confirmed that the man was really watching me. He seemed to be about 40 years old, short trimmed hair, expressionless face, and wore a flawless suit that looked too expensive to someone who returns from a subway so late. The most disturbing thing was that he was holding his cell phone in a strange position, as if filming or photographing me. I tried to disguise my discomfort looking at my own cell phone, but it was getting harder and harder to ignore that fixed look on my back. The feeling was so suffocating that I started to feel my heart accelerate. I tried to calm down, thinking that maybe he was just distracted, looking at nothing, or maybe I had something strange in the hair or clothes that caught his attention. But something in my instinct shouted that there was something wrong. I decided to change places to see if I was really being paranoid. I got up as anyone who wants nothing and went to the other side of the wagon, pretending to look for a place with a better cell phone signal. That's when the thing was really scary. As soon as I sat in the new place, the man also got up and changed seat, maintaining exactly the same distance as before. He kept looking at me with that empty expression, and the cell phone still pointed toward me. My stomach sank and felt a cold in my belly that had nothing to do with the wagon's air conditioning. I looked around looking for help, but the other passengers were absorbed in their own worlds. An elderly lady dozed. 2 young people were from headphones, and a middle-aged man read something on her tablet. I was practically alone with that stranger that clearly followed me inside the wagon. When the subway announced the next season, I made a quick decision. It was not my landing point, but I decided to leave anyway. That situation was making me panic, and at that moment, it seemed safer to wait for the next train or get an Uber than to continue there. As soon as the doors opened, I practically jumped out and started walking quickly down the platform towards the stairs. I looked back at a glance and my blood fell. The man had also descended and walked at the same pace as me, always keeping the same distance. I accelerated the step and he did the same. My heart beat so hard that I could feel it in my throat. The station was almost deserted, with only one cleaning employee at the other end of the platform. I began to feel increasingly desperate, as if stuck in a nightmare where no matter how much you run, can never escape. I spotted a security cabin near the turnstiles and ran there, regardless of disguising my fear anymore. A half-aged, sleepy-looking security guard raised his eyes from his cell phone when I hit the cabin glass. "I need help," I said, without breath and a trembling voice. "There's a man following me from the train. He's filming me or something." The security guard got up immediately, asked me to describe the man, and then looked toward where I had come. I described the stranger in detail: the dark suit, the upright posture, the cell phone in hand, the expressionless face. The security guard frowned and took his radio to communicate with other agents. "Where is he now?" asked. I turned to point, but the man had disappeared. The platform was completely empty, except for the cleaning employee who continued his work at the other end, oblivious to everything. The security guard noticed my despair and tried to calm me down, saying that he would check the security cameras. He invited me to enter the small monitoring room adjacent to the cabin. Inside, another security operated a system with multiple screens showing different angles of the season. "Which train did you get, and which wagon was in?" he asked. I answered with the information and they started to retrieve the recordings. My hands trembled as I waited, mentally passing on everything that had happened. He needed a confirmation that he was not going crazy, that this man was real, and that the danger I felt was justified. I looked at the screens anxiously as they advanced and settled on the video, focusing on the second train on the train that had just broken. And then the shock came. In the cameras, the wagon showed exactly the same people I had noticed: the old lady, the two young people with headphones, the man with the tablet, but the man in suit was simply not there. "Are you sure that was the wagon?" asked the eldest security guard with an eyebrow erected. I nodded, unable to articulate words. He then moved to another camera which showed a different angle from the same wagon. Again, there was no sign of the man in a suit. "Can you see yourself in the recording?" he asked. And yes, there I was initially sitting in the middle of the wagon, then changing places, looking nervous and constantly looking back to an empty space. I felt the blood flee from my face. The younger security then checked the images of the platform and my hasty departure from the train. In the images, I seemed to be running away from something, looking back several times, but there was absolutely no one following me. "You may be very tired," the eldest security guard suggested paternal. "It happens to many people who work late." But I knew what I had seen. I knew what I had felt. I left the monitoring room completely stunned, questioning my own sanity. The security guards, seeing my state, offered to call a taxi and wait with me, which I readily accepted. As we waited at the entrance of the season, could not stop looking nervously around, hoping to see that man appear again from the shadows. The older security tried to comfort me with stories of how tiredness and stress can make our minds preach pieces, but their words barely come into my ears. How could you have imagined something so vivid and scary? I could have sworn that I had seen his reflection in the subway window, had felt his gaze on my back, had observed his movements when I moved place. It was as if every detail of that man had been ironed in my memory. The haircut accurate, the well-adjusted suit, the way his fingers held his tilted cell phone toward me. When I finally got home, I locked all the locks and checked every corner of my small apartment, including under the bed and inside the bathroom stall. I was ridiculous doing this, but the fear was too real to ignore. I tried to distract myself by taking a hot shower and making a tea, but my mind kept reliving every second of that experience. seeking some logical explanation. Was it so exhausted that I created a perfectly detailed hallucination? Were the security guards seeing the wrong recordings? Or worse, did not the cameras capture man for some reason? This last possibility terrified me more than any other. I sat on the bed with my notebook and started researching sleep hallucination phenomena. But nothing I found seemed to explain such a concrete and consistent experience as I had. Gradually, the tiredness was overcoming the fear, and I fell asleep with the lights all lit, my cell phone firmly clinging to my hand. I woke up from a busy sleep with the shrill sound of my alarm. For a brief moment, I had that feeling of relief that comes when you realize that it was all a nightmare. But then the memories of the night before returned like a punch in the stomach. The man in the subway, his silent persecution, the cameras that did not record it. I took my cell phone and opened my email, thinking of writing to my boss saying I was sick and would not work. But something stopped me. If I hidden at home, I would be giving power to fear, admitting that there was something really wrong with me. I decided that I needed to face the day, to return to the routine, to prove to myself that it was just a strange episode caused by overwork. As I got ready, I avoided looking for the mirror a long time. There was something disturbing in the idea of watching me as closely as that man had done. Each time he closed his eyes to pass the mascara, he saw his inexpressive face staring at me. I chose to take a Uber for work, postponing the moment to get the subway again. In the office, my colleagues noticed my tired appearance, but attributed to the fact that I was late. No one asked why it seemed so distracted, why I constantly looked at the door each time someone came in, or why I shuddered when my cell phone vibrated. Around noon, I started to feel a little calmer. The familiarity of the office, the routine tasks, and the trivial conversations about lunch and time actually anchored me. Perhaps the security guards were right. Perhaps it was just an illusion caused by tiredness. I decided to go to lunch with 2 colleagues in a nearby restaurant, thinking that the company and fresh air would do me well. That's when we were coming back, laughing at something one of them said. I saw him, across the street, standing in front of a showcase, with the same dark suit of the night before. I wasn't looking at the showcase, I was looking straight at me. And again, there was the phone raised toward me. I stopped so abruptly that a person behind me almost bumped. My colleagues asked what happened, but I couldn't talk, just point. When they looked in the indicated direction, the man had already begun to move away, walking quietly along the opposite sidewalk. What is it, Emma? Did you see someone known? Melissa asked, clearly confused. My voice came out strangled when I finally said, that man in suit. Didn't you see? He was filming me. The 2 looked again, but he had already disappeared in the crowd. They exchanged concerned glances as I continued to face the point where he had been. There was no one filming you, Emma, Alyssa said gently, as if talking to a child. It was just a guy looking at the showcase. But I knew what I had seen. It was the same man, the same empty look, the same cell phone pointed at me. The same horrible feeling of being observed had come back with full force, along with a new and terrible thought. This was not happening only on the subway. The rest of the day at work was a blur. I couldn't concentrate at all. Each time someone passed the hall, I expected to see that inexpressive face. Each time my cell phone vibrated, I imagined that somehow he had got my number. I started researching on my computer cases of persecution, stalking, and even paranormal phenomena while pretending to work. It was then that I found an online forum where people reported inexplicable experiences. I read dozens of stories, some clearly invented, some disturbingly similar to mine. One in particular caught my attention. A woman from Boston described a man in a suit that followed her on the train but never appeared in the photos she was trying to take from him. Her report ended abruptly, with a note from the forum administrator saying she had never logged in after that post. I felt a shiver through my spine. Was I living some kind of supernatural phenomenon? Or worse, was it developing a serious psychological problem? As these questions spinned in my head, I received an email notification. It was subway security, responding to a request that I didn't even remember. After additional revision of the recordings, we confirmed that there is no record of any individual corresponding to their description. When it was finally time to leave, I found myself paralyzed in front of the building. The idea of getting the subway caused me nausea, but I didn't want to spend so much money on another Uber. After a few minutes of hesitation, I decided to face my fear and walked toward the station, repeating to myself that it had been all imagination, that there was no reason for panic. The station was much busier than the night before, which gave me a false sense of security. There were dozens of people on the platform, all engaged in their own post-Turnus thoughts. I positioned myself close to a group of young executives, thinking it would be safer to be close to other people. The train arrived and entered, finding a place to sit next to an older woman. I kept my eyes fixed on my cell phone, fighting the impulse to check each face in the wagon. But the more I tried to distract me, the stronger the feeling that I was being observed again. When I finally created the courage to lift my eyes, I almost shouted. There he was, 3 seats ahead, across the hallway. It was no longer a suit, but it wore a clear social shirt and dark pants. The face was still the same, inexpressive, pale, with those eyes that seemed to cross me. And again, the cell phone subtly positioned toward me. My hands began to tremble so much that I dropped my own cell phone. The woman beside me looked at me with concern and asked if I was okay. I couldn't answer. My gaze was fixed on him, and he knew that. For the first time, I saw your lips move, forming what seemed to be a very subtle smile. It was like a stab of pure terror. I got up from over and headed to the door, even missing 2 stations for my stop. I didn't look back to see if he followed me. I didn't need to look. He knew he would be there, keeping that same disturbing distance.